2017 is over at last. Well, it has been for a while now, but January was a busy month, so thanks for bearing with me. But it's finally time for my now traditional end-of-year awards. I won't waste too much time on introductions, other than to note there'll be 4 categories each day and a final top 10 list on day 5. We'll be starting off with awards for 2017's 2016 Game of the Year, Best New Character, Best Sound Design, and Hardest Choice. As always, these are all just my own personal opinions, but I'd love to hear what you would have picked in the comments below. Let's kick things off straight away with the awards for day 1. 2017's 2016 Game of the Year. Dark Souls 3. The Dark Souls trilogy was brought to its final conclusion in 2017 with the Ringed City. I felt very much on the side of loving what the core game had brought to the table, and this second DLC certainly didn't disappoint either. From both a mechanical and a thematic standpoint, the Ringed City feels very much like a loving farewell to the series. It brings some of the grandest and most complex encounters Dark Souls has seen to the table, and for the most part, pulls it all off with aplomb. Darkest Dungeon. Having spent plenty of time with the early access period the year prior, I didn't actually return to Darkest Dungeon until quite late in 2016. Yet, revisiting it ahead of my previous Game of the Year awards reignited my lust for unknowable power and buried wealth, and I found myself scrabbling against the antediluvian ruins once more. The release of the extra punishing Crimson Court and its vile blood curse only gave me further cause to send more brave adventurers plummeting into madness and despair. Hitman. One of last year's finest entries, Hitman already had such a wealth of content packed into it that I could have kept playing it for most of 2017 without ever finishing everything. Add in the ability for players to create and share custom challenges, the recent return of elusive targets, and the addition of the Patient Zero campaign in November, and this world of assassination becomes an entire galaxy of fun, spread before your fingertips. I'll be playing this one long into 2018 and beyond, while hoping for news on Season 2. Overwatch. Overwatch has seen several new characters arriving throughout 2017, and a wide sprinkling of seasonal events throughout the year. The dev team have also been pretty good about communicating with their audience and giving some insight into their processes and decisions. Their balance changes have at times left a little to be desired, and many people, myself included, have hit a real loot box fatigue over the past 12 months. Nevertheless, at its core, Overwatch has remained a tremendously fun game, and it's nice to have had incentives to keep coming back throughout the year. Endings are always hard. A supplemental farewell following on from Dark Souls 3's already strong finale seemed even tougher, yet for the most part the Ringed City delivers. The areas are gorgeous in their disrepair, the stories are melancholy, the people and creatures you encounter range from the comfortingly familiar to the truly bizarre. The Ringed City's final showdown pits you against a lowly slave knight, corrupted by his consumption of the Dark Soul, in an ashen wasteland seemingly home to the lost pygmies of ancient lore. It's perhaps a little too on the nose, but it feels tonally fitting and an apt counterpart to the main game's conclusion. The encounter itself lives up to the moment too, with Gale slowly progressing from a lumbering, flailing old warrior into a whirlwind of fire and steel. Not content with merely constructing a spectacular final fight, FromSoft have pulled out all the stops for this finale, including the return of the much requested PvP boss for the first time since Demon's Souls, and what feels like the final realisation of that dragon encounter the series has so long strived to achieve. The Ringed City is a gorgeous love letter to send off Dark Souls, and it was a pleasure to say goodbye for myself in 2017. Best New Character. Soraya Hawthorne, Destiny 2. Destiny wasn't really a series you'd associate with strong personalities, but the sequel made some decent steps in the right direction, and none more so than with Resistance fighter Soraya Hawthorne. By throwing a human who has always lived without the light into the mix, Destiny 2 is able to start asking some more interesting questions about the nature of human civilization beyond the Guardians of the Tower. Ultimately, I wish the game went a little further down that path, but I was still extremely glad to have Soraya by my side throughout Destiny 2's campaign. Amanda, Dream Daddy. Dream Daddy may sell itself as a game about dating hot dads, but it's just as much a game about being a single dad yourself, and your relationship with daughter Amanda is one of the game's most striking and heartwarming aspects. Whether we were sharing the highs, helping each other through the lows, creating chaos in the kitchen, groaning at each other's terrible puns, or simply vegging out in front of another episode of Long Haul Paranormal Ice Road Ghost Truckers, every moment spent with Amanda felt real and special.
like the noonday light.
Aloy, Horizon Zero Dawn. The success of just about everything in Horizon Zero Dawn's story rests on the shoulders of its protagonist. Thankfully then, Aloy is more than capable of carrying that weight. A likeable, relatable and headstrong figure, Aloy is the perfect foil to everything happening around her. Calm when others are panicking, assertive when people might look to take advantage of her, inquisitive about a world with so many unknowns, yet grounded and willing to question the words of authority figures who are often misinterpreting or concealing information.
Everyone calls me Aloy of the Nora.
Makoto Makimura, Yakuza 0. For all the brash, loud figures surrounding her, it's the quiet presence at the centre of Yakuza 0's twisting narrative who stands out the most. Makoto has it about as rough as it comes. An innocent, well-meaning young woman suffering from post-traumatic blindness who is unwillingly pulled into the centre of a vast conflict. Her journey is marred with constant struggle and loss, yet seeing her determination grow towards the story's conclusion filled me with a sense of hope and pride. I've rarely rooted for a character to succeed so much as I did in Yakuza 0, but I wanted nothing more than for Makoto to finally escape the trauma around her and be able to live a normal, happy life. So often in games, we see strength manifested as characters who remain stoic in the face of adversity. Indeed, the majority of Yakuza 0's cast is packed with characters who are supremely confident at almost all times, regardless of how much the odds might be stacked against them. It's perhaps this contrast which makes Makoto stand out. Makoto spends most of the story visibly afraid, confused or upset, yet her strength to keep going in the face of everything is unquestionable. Her compassion for those around her, and willingness to put the well-being of others ahead of her own, even after all the hurt that so many have caused her, only serves to further highlight her as a spark of pure good in Yakuza's underworld of crime and violence. Safe travels, Makoto Makimura. I wish you nothing but happiness. Best Sound Design. Destiny 2. There's always something to do in Destiny 2. You're constantly bouncing between activities and there's rarely a moment where you need to stop. Yet I found myself taking pause at times just to fire off a few rounds and listen to the shots echoing back off the surrounding landscape. The guns are everything in Destiny, so it's good that they sound as satisfying to fire as they do. Positional audio is also critical in both PvE and the Crucible, and it works a treat here. Destiny's main draw is how incredible its core feel is, and the sound design goes a huge way towards that. Horizon Zero Dawn. Robot dinosaurs was always going to be an easy sell, but creating the right sounds to fit them is a tough ask. Yet the roars and screeches of the machines are pitch perfect, striking a balance between artificial and natural. The clangs and crunches of combat are incredibly satisfying. I'll never tire of hearing the creaking of a frozen beast or the hum of a tear blast arrow before it sends parts crashing everywhere. The positional sound is fantastic too, even passing flies would have me flinching in real life as they buzzed past my headset. The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Honestly, this game could be here for that cooking jingle alone. But Breath of the Wild has so much more than that to offer. With its fairly minimalist soundtrack, Breath of the Wild really leans on the sound design to put you in its world. The whistling of the wind, the crackling of fire, the shivers and groans when Link starts to get too chilly, everything captures the moments perfectly. Of course, it wouldn't be The Legend of Zelda without those iconic jingles and stings, and they're here by the bucket load as well. The Sexy Brutale. Sound is a pivotal navigational tool in the Sexy Brutale. With your vision limited to your current room, being able to hear the movements of others nearby can quickly alert you to possible danger or a potential opening. Because events play out identically each time you restart the day, you become increasingly familiar with every sound that permeates the mansion walls. Each area you visit has its own series of sounds, yet no matter where you are, you'll always hear that gunshot ring out at 3:45. Sorry, Reginald. It doesn't take long before the Sexy Brutale begins to marry specific sounds to key events within the mansion, eliciting an almost Pavlovian response from the player where you instinctively start listening for the shattering of glass at 20 to 7 or the toll of a bell 15 minutes afterwards. Of course, these sounds are not merely there for effect. Instead, each crash, clatter and slam lets you know that another guest of the Sexy Brutale has come to a grisly end. You'll even come to associate certain builds in the music with each character's inevitable demise. Hearing each gruesome death play out, time after time, serves actual mechanical purpose however. By being able to pinpoint the events happening around you by sound alone, the footsteps of a waiter passing by next door, the crank and whir of Aurum runes spinning another reel, the sudden cut of a gramophone being shut off, you're able to instantly know exactly what's happening around you without having to pause and check. Rarely has a game made me feel like it is taking such full advantage of sound as a feedback device as the Sexy Brutale does. Hardest choice. A quick spoiler warning here. I'll be talking about pivotal player decisions in Dream Daddy, Nier Automata, Pyre and Subsurface Circular. If you'd rather not have those spoiled, I totally understand and thank you for watching this far. Otherwise, onwards we go. Picking your dad for life, Dream Daddy. With so many cool dads to choose from, deciding who you're going to commit to is a tough choice. There were about 4 who had initially drawn my attention, though I spent at least a little time with everyone. Bookish teacher Hugo's revelation that he was a huge closet wrestling fan almost swayed me in his direction, yet when it came down to it, I went with initial instincts. From the first time I hung out with Damien, it was wonderful, and by the time credits rolled, I couldn't have been happier with my decision. He truly was the dreamiest daddy. The Pascal decision, Nier Automata. Avowed pacifist Pascal is a central part of Nier Automata's narrative, making contact with you early on and being the first real indication that machine lifeforms and androids don't necessarily have to live at one another's throats. After watching him oversee the children of the village and generally being a real spark of hope amongst the conflicts raging around you, seeing Pascal so deeply, profoundly broken by the tragic events towards Automata's climax that he begs you for any form of release touched me to my core.
Fear destroyed them.
The first one to leave, Pyre. Pyre's opening hours see you building up a team as your group of stragglers and outsiders work together towards a supposed goal of earning your collective freedom from the downside. However, it's not long before the true nature of the deal becomes clear. You may only nominate one player for freedom per cycle. Win and their crimes are absolved, lose and your opponent's nominee goes free. Naturally, you'd want to choose your favourite party members to go, yet freeing them means they'll no longer be a part of your journey or your squad. It's an agonising conundrum.
Deserves their freedom.
Take the shot, Subsurface Circular. Your time spent on the underground train line known as the Subsurface Circular sees you investigating a mysterious disappearance, yet as things escalate you find yourself left wiped of your purpose and put on the spot by Red, the very tech who set you down this path. As one of the few techs granted high-level intelligence by your human creators, Red entrusts you to make the final call on a world-altering decision. Being suddenly presented with the full facts, it's clear both outcomes are equally troubling. I came away truly unsure whether or not I'd made the right choice, if there even was one. Few games, perhaps none, have put me in such an agonising position as Nier Automata. Pascal, a true force for good, has everything ripped out from under him in quick succession. The village is ravaged and destroyed, most of its inhabitants are torn apart, and Pascal is forced to violence in a desperate final attempt to save the few children who remain, only to discover that they took their own lives in his absence out of sheer terror. Pascal's desperate plea for everything to be over is heartbreaking. Killing him feels wrong after everything he's been through, plus the world could do with beings like Pascal, yet wiping his memory feels almost like a betrayal. Not only are you forced to relive his happiest memories as you delete them one by one, but Pascal is left to return to the village and absent-mindedly go back to business, oblivious to the tragedy surrounding him. I didn't realise a third option to simply walk away existed, else I might have taken it, but that feels like turning your back on a good friend in their time of greatest need. I'm sorry, Pascal. I'm so truly sorry.
Reset timer activated.
Pascal.
And that wraps up today's awards. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, a like would be greatly appreciated, and be sure to leave any comments, opinions or queries down below as well. We'll be back with another video tomorrow where I'll reveal my picks for best surprise, best mechanics, best visuals and best story. Until then, I've been Ken and I'll catch you on the next one. Cheers!